Do I have a second?
Second.
So, Corey,
Yep.
Megan,
Here, present.
Erwin,
Present.
Vince, and I think Cynthia said she couldn't be here today. There was some conflict in her schedule. So let us begin. So the first thing on the agenda are the next meeting dates. And is this a convenient time? I think we, agreed before, but things have kind of bounced around.
Yeah, the only
Thursdays
thing
at
from-
3 o'clock.
The only thing from our perspective, just right now, is the 250th is like our whole world. We are living, breathing, and eating 250th. So if we could do it after the 250th, that would be very helpful for our team, just because we have a lot of tasks.
I agree. I'm getting buried under elections and the 250th.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Mm,
absolutely.
that makes sense. Yeah, why don't we plan to do it, later in the month? Anybody have a preference?
Yeah.
Maybe the last Thursday of the month?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, let's plan to do that then.
Last Thursday in April?
Yes, yeah,
That's April 24th.
April 24th.
That's a few
we
days
should-
after.
We should be recovered by then. We should be able to hop back on.
You'll either be recovered or you've run away.
That's right.
So the third I might have on the agenda is minutes, which are quite a bit behind, which is my fault. And I've been kind of playing around with, the AI assistant in Zoom. And I've also discovered that, all of the other AI programs are about the same. I don't see anybody been playing around with AI on their own, or I do notice that the MCI committee has been using Notes AI, which was kind of interesting because there's an interesting feature in there where there's two avatars, people talking to each other about the subject of the meeting, and it's very realistic, so I'm kind of impressed with how far people have gotten. So anyway,
Has the town picked a standard for doing this, or is it still the Wild West?
So that is the topic of continuous conversation
Yeah.
within the organization. And right now, I'm attending several conferences with other municipalities that are kind of starting the beginning journey with AI. I have one actually on Monday in Shrewsbury to talk about like the implementation and how we run governance, like how do you run effective governance and policy. So while we're starting to look at that, I am getting some licenses for some testing that we want to do, but we're sort of at the beginning stages of it. But I get asked about AI at least 2 or 3 times a week.
Well, this is a particularly good use case. Is minutes for meetings would be a great one.
Absolutely,
Yeah. I used Grok, the one that is, I think, Elon Musk's, and I'm a comedian, so that's why I did it, just to like test the limits of it. And I highly do not recommend it for governance because it will say anything you want it to. The limits it's limitless, so it's awful in that regard. I mean, it's pretty funny if for other things, but not for government, in my opinion.
One thing that would be interesting, I think, is to, revisit the entire workflow, from the time that the agenda is posted, basically, to the time of the meeting. I have a couple of times, just as a test, and this is based on something that I think I've seen Milton do. The clerk in Milton actually is kind of proactive in the way that the meetings are handled. Actually, everything is assigned by the clerk's office. After the chairs, I assume, ask about, scheduling the next meeting. So it seems to flow from the clerk, directly to the agenda, and then the clerk posts the agenda. So, there's a variety of ways to do it. And one thing, every meeting I've attended almost, and some committees in particular, are always as the first topic discussing who should take the minutes. Where it isn't necessarily the formal clerk. It seems like it's kind of a rotating responsibility. And it seems that there should be a better workflow than that. So I don't know, what people's opinions are on that. I don't necessarily think that the clerk should, kind of take over the duties by themselves, but it does seem to me that it's one of maybe the deterrents to committee work, is just because keeping the minutes seems to be an arduous job. Anybody have any thoughts on that, or watched any?
Well, that's why I was saying it'd be good, for some sort of standard across all committees that this is how moving forward. If you want to do minutes the old way, go ahead. But moving forward, this is what's been approved by the town, and there's a license or whatever's needed.
Yeah, agree.
I think that's actually a good idea. I did notice that the legislature has passed yet another bill extending the open meeting law for 2 years this time. And actually, Governor Healy is supposed to sign it this week, I think.
Yeah,
So-
all that, June 2027.
Yeah, so nothing changes, which, I don't know if that's a deterrent. The only thing that I know had been called for is that basically any committee meeting, had to be accessible. The chair didn't have to recognize, anybody that dropped in on the meeting, but the meeting did have to be available, and that doesn't necessarily, well, it does mean streaming, I guess, for the people that are doing it. But aside from that, I don't think anything has changed very much. So anyway, we have another 2 years of the status quo, I guess. So let's move on to item 3, and that is we did item 3. The Comcast and the
MMN update.
an update, yeah.
Yeah, I can speak to this a little bit. I was telling Amalia before about 1 o'clock this afternoon. I didn't have too much to report on that, but I've gotten an email recently, and I'll give you guys kind of an update of where we left it. So At the last meeting, we had an executive session where we reviewed in broad terms the contract and highlighted the differences between the old contract and the new proposed contract. We had our contract out to council for review after negotiating for a couple of years. And council came back with many modifications, almost all of which were very, very minor, a handful of which were material. So we collectively, Terry and Sue and I met and reviewed all of those and made a game plan. We kind of put into the document the ones that we felt were justified and were protecting the town. And then we talked with the attorney on the others and came to an agreement on either leaving them in or leaving them out. And then we sent that to Comcast, and we were mindful too that this is pretty late in the game, and that we tried to get all the material topics on the table early on, and so we didn't want to introduce anything that would be perceived as negotiating in bad faith, where we kind of resurrected something that had already been decided. But I thought that the changes were very reasonable and fair and very minor. So we just got back from them today that they have accepted all of the changes except one, and that one, they're not saying they're opposed to it. They just want some clarification on it. And I can tell you the nature it's of describing the demarcation point of where their responsibility ends and ours begins in terms of broadcasting. So obviously we have a broadcast server. That server pushes out video, and typically that goes into an encoder. The encoder is connected to fiber and goes over to Comcast systems. So today we actually own the encoders. They're our equipment. But that's not typical. Typically, Comcast owns the encoders. And so I think that the definition that our council had suggested was just more in line to make that more industry standard and say that after our broadcast equipment, our responsibility ends, whether we own the encoders today or not. Comcast ultimately is responsible for those. And so I think that we just need to have a conversation about that. But nevertheless, they've accepted everything else. And from what we presented to the group, there has been no changes in the money and the channels and the details. Like everything is as what we presented. The changes were adding the words, as required by law a few hundred times, and tweaking just some dates, as to when the agreement starts and when it would likely conclude. And, just maybe clarifying, referring to section numbers. And another small example is in the exhibits. The exhibits are typically named after the section that they're introduced in. So if in section 6.3, it refers to see the appendix for the exhibits, the exhibit would be labeled, 6.3, so that you would know that it refers to the piece in that section. And because of the revisions in the documents and the section numbers that had changed over time, those didn't align anymore. So 2 of them needed to be changed. So again, very non-material changes from what we presented to the committee at the last meeting. I've been working with Andrea in the select board's office to coordinate a time to set up a meeting with the select board. And we actually do have a placeholder for the Monday meeting, but we are thinking that it more appropriately needs to be a public hearing, which has advertising requirements. So we're likely not going to be before the board on Monday. Our ideal process, though, is that this committee would vote to recommend the substance of the contract, and then the select board, Vince, ideally, or somebody who representing the committee would attend the select board meeting. We would open the hearing, frame the background and history in a way not dissimilar from what I presented to the group last meeting. And then, Vince could say, in a whatever vote, we, voted to recommend this agreement. And then the select board could hear from the public after their brief presentation, just to, have the public weigh in on what the contract says. And then if the select board agrees, then they would vote to accept it and then sign it afterwards. So that's kind of the process that we'd like to follow. But we certainly can do things in a different order. I think the select board would expect this committee to weigh in prior to their hearing. And so, the current extension that we have on the table goes through the 19th of April, which is Patriots Day. So we either need a signed agreement or another extension before that date. if PAC is not meeting until after Patriots Day, then today's meeting would really be the last time for the committee to vote on the substance of the agreement. So that's kind of where we are. So option one is you make a motion to say, we vote to recommend the agreement as presented at the last meeting, with the understanding that there's been non-material changes in dates and legal lease. Or we wait until that next meeting and then do it after the 250th, and just know that we'll have to probably move dates out a little bit and have to go before the select board one more time for another extension.
So Jason, if we did it now, this contract could be signed prior to the 19th.
That's my understanding.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm
Oh,
waiting to hear back on the hearing schedule because we have to have that advertised for 2 weeks, and they need some days to advertise it in the paper anyway. So I just have to see what that select board meeting is, because their schedule is wonky right now because of the 250th. They're having almost weekly meetings, I think, and they used to just be every other week, but now they've had a bunch in a row. And maybe Julie actually would know more than I do, but when their meeting schedule is for the next few weeks.
so anybody else have an opinion?
Jason?
Yeah.
You feel confident that signing that, because you've been through the whole process, that the changes are just minor and
Oh, yeah.
legal? Pardon me?
Yes, I can guarantee you, because I went through every single one with Sue, and we reviewed the information that we had when I made the presentation to you guys and sent you that stuff. We had already had that back from the attorney. We just hadn't yet sent it to Comcast. So we took all of that into consideration when we sent it to you. So the version that even I emailed to you guys, I
Yeah.
had almost all of those changes. The only thing that didn't have was the section numbers and the dates of the agreement. So what you have seen is exactly what Comcast has, and we're just trying to clarify that language about how you define the demarcation point. So that may change a little bit, but I mean, definitely nothing about the dollar amount, the duration, the responsibilities, the customer service, the channels, all the big pieces that we've fought for are definitely in there.
And you did a great job at that. Thank you. Thank you. I feel, Vince, I feel comfortable with voting today.
Same here. This is Megan.
Yep, same here.
Okay, so do I have a motion?
I move that we vote on, are we signing the contract, Jason?
Well, the
What,
select board signs, so I think you just vote to recommend
Recommend.
select board adopt the proposed agreement.
okay, I hereby recommend that the select board adopt the agreement.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay, everybody?
Yep, in favor.
Aye,
Yes,
Aye.
Erwin,
Aye.
Megan?
Aye.
Oh, okay. So,
Vince, did you vote?
aye, yes, I did.
Sorry, I didn't hear.
Aye, aye, aye.
Okay. All right.
Okay,
Yeah, so I think next steps is just when we get the timing, I'll let everybody on the committee know. And if Vince, you can decide, like, if a bunch of them come, if a bunch of people want to come to the select board meeting, you could post it as a meeting as well. But if it's just you, Vince, or maybe one other person, you don't necessarily need to. And then I don't know what the select board will ask of PAC, but they just want to know that people have been following this and been looking into it, and you guys have done a terrific job asking questions and staying on top of it and making sure that we get information out to people through this avenue. So thank you all for your participation in this very long road that we've traveled.
well, the last item on the agenda is, and there are some options when we get to that. So I think it will probably be worthwhile, appearing before the select board, to discuss that. Probably, we'll see. So we are on to the MMN update.
Okay. So I'll start with the town election because in chronological order, that's happening next. So we have been, there's been a lot of candidate forums all over town, hosted by different groups, you know, the league, the parents group we're doing here at the school, the COA. So we're filming all of these candidate forums. Also, some candidates are coming here individually and filming videos for their campaign. Mary Hartman has come here, Paul Bohm, Michael Williams.
Actually,
that- Hmm? What'd you say?
I'm sorry, I was talking to my dog. Who's nagging me.
Okay. Michael Williams just did a podcast with Joe Palumbo, so it wasn't a, you know, direct kind of a campaign video, but Mary and Paul did come in here and they were interviewed by one of their, you know, their campaign manager, and they just did a little interview setup and just spoke about, you know, top priorities for them in their campaign. So that's the town election. And then, of course, we have the 250th, and we're in the process of an RFQ right now, a request for quote, to get help with our media coverage. And our plan is that all along the route of the parade, which is 3.5 miles, we're going to have about 5 or 6 cameras along the route. And then those cameras will feed with the cellular bonded cell wireless. They will transmit to a production truck that we're going to rent. And in that production truck is going to be the switcher. We'll have monitors and all the different cameras. So we'll be switching different camera angles as the parade moves along. Also, we're going to have a golf cart and a driver and a camera operator to sit on the back of the golf cart with a camera on a gimbal. And that golf cart is going to be driving along the parade route the whole time. So we're excited about that. Also, we have a location for the Jumbotron. It's going to be in the Umbrella Arts parking lot, the parking lot between the Umbrella and the library. Exactly where in the parking lot is TBD, but that's where it's going to be. Also, we are making a video for the 250 volunteers, or they're known as the ambassadors. The 250th ambassador, kind of a training video. And we've been working with Court Booth, chief of police, captain, police captain. They've all been coming in here filming their piece of this training video. So it's just talking into the camera, saying, thank you for being a volunteer and stepping up. We couldn't do it without you. You're the eyes and ears. You're helping us with public safety, you know, some do's and don'ts, talking about the video will show a map, you know, all the maps of the parade and the road closures. It'll show a picture of the vest that they're all going to wear. It'll talk about credentials. So it's probably going to be about, I don't know, 15-minute video. And we're putting that together. And those are the main highlights. Really all.
Julie, from the cart, are you going live from the cart, or that's just recorded?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. So we're going to be, that's the other thing. We're going to be live streaming everything to our YouTube channel. So
Including the golf cart?
yes.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
Well, that's the RFQ is for that, so that we can secure this
Okay.
partner to help us, another production company that has all that magic equipment. So we know we're going to be very professional, very good production quality.
That's
Great.
great.
Yeah, and so you can tell everybody it's going to be live streamed on our YouTube channel. And I also understand that there's going to be some viewing parties, so to speak, like the COA. They're going to also, you know, have a gathering and then just hook a laptop up to their projector and pull up our YouTube channel. So as long as you've got a computer, you can make any space a viewing party.
Do we want to talk a little bit about the meeting that you had regarding with the other,
Yeah. And I've been in 2 meetings with other folks from other media, so local Boston media. So the Globe is going to be here on that day, NBC Channel 10, WHDH, WBZ, WBUR Radio. So I was in a meeting with all of them, and they're all going to be here. There's going to be a strong presence from other media besides us. And in those meetings, you know, again, we talked about road closures and vehicle credentials and things like that. And our cameras are going to be on risers. We're going to be elevated 4 feet above the ground, which will give us, you know, a better viewpoint with our cameras. And we're going to be along Main Street, and these other media outlets are also probably going to have reporters with them as well.
Nobody's taking a live feed from you. They're doing their own thing.
Well, no, they have asked us. They asked us. I guess they call it the pool.
Right, right.
Yeah, yeah.
So they've asked us to share our live feed with them, and obviously we're going to accommodate.
Sure.
But
Make
then
sure we
you're-
get credit.
You get the local Emmy nomination then, right?
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So
Okay.
they put a little bug in the corner.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
So we're excited. A lot of other
Yeah.
details too, but you know.
And we are gonna go, once the vendor is selected, we are, Julie and her team and I are gonna go and take a look at all the equipment, because we want to put eyes on it ahead of time. We'll be able to see the Jumbotron, and we'll kind of be able to get a feel and
Mhm.
make sure that we're sort of, you know, we're aware of what we're getting. So once the RFQ closes out and we select the vendor, we'll go ahead and do like a little
Yeah.
excursion up there to, you know, wherever they're at to put eyes on.
And the production truck as well. All of it. Yeah.
And I think the plan is there's gonna be a lot of setup and testing for Julie and whoever the selected contractor is on the 18th. So there's gonna be a lot of work on the 18th just to make sure that we can test all of our capability, to make sure that we, you know, we're comfortable. Julie and her team are, you know, the locations where we're at, we're good. So there's gonna be a lot of work, you know, the day before, just in making sure that we're up and ready for first thing on Saturday morning.
Yep.
And then if, although that wasn't enough, we're also contacting, we're also working towards our annual town meeting, because we know that's just coming up right after, right after the 250. So Julie and I have met we're working the RFP with the communications manager to make sure that we get all the requirements set for annual town meeting, and then also to make sure that we can provide all the capability that we need for town meeting. So it's gonna be, we're running to the finish line, but the finish line seems to get longer. But we're good.
And also for the town meeting, we're going to be making warrant article explainer videos. So we're going to be working with Carmen Reese on those.
Oh, what
Just
a
have-
good idea.
Say again?
That's a great idea.
Oh, yeah. So she's going to decide who's going to be doing the speaking, but it'll be somebody speaking to the camera, you know, it's breaking down and saying
Yeah.
a vote for yes means this, a no vote means that. And so there'll be little snippets.
Cool.
And we do that for Carlisle too. Let's not forget, we also have the town of Carlisle's town meeting on May 18th. And we're going to be doing explainer videos with them too. Yep. So we're
Yeah.
really dead over here.
I think Carmen is planning to use clickers at the town meeting.
She is, yes, and one of the videos that Carmen will produce will be she has sort of twofold. She's putting together, we're helping her put together a frequently asked questions guide that will be posted prior to the meeting, to give people, like, you know, frequently asked questions about clickers and how they're used. And then in the month of April, probably post 250th, she will work with Julie, and she will create a video on the use of clickers, how to sort of like a how-to, how they work, what they look like, because
Yeah.
we'll already have we
Mhm.
will already have the shield of what will be on the clicker, so we'll be able to sort of show the community what the clickers would look like, and she'll kind of go through that through a quick like how-to and explanation video of clickers. So
Yeah.
that will probably be done after the 250th though, but obviously before town meeting.
I guess Wayland is using the same equipment, I understand.
Yes, so they have the same vendor. Wayland has the same vendor, yeah, and they lease theirs every year. So they've never purchased it. They actually just lease them every year, have the vendor come in and set it up for them, run it through the town meeting, and then pack it all up and
Take it
come back
away.
next year. So the team and I, we're going to, myself, Kari and Carmen are going to the Westford Town meeting, because Westford has been using clickers for several years now. So we're gonna see their setup and working with their IT director to see what they're doing, but we digress.
Has Wayland looked into anything besides the clickers? There's a company that I can think of called Volts with a Z. And theirs is a somewhat more ambitious process. But what they do is they use basically an app on smartphones, you know, either iPhones or Android phones. And it seems to me that using a device like that is a little bit more flexible than using a proprietary piece of hardware.
Yeah, so Vince, I don't think we're quite there yet. The town meeting study committee came up with a recommendation that was presented to the select board several months ago, and then we were asked to test this particular function. I think going to the smartphone option might likely be a step technically too far, at least from what we're hearing, but yes, that technology does exist. I don't think we would be prepared by this town meeting to even consider using that.
Yeah, that has been used. I think it was in Colorado. It wasn't Denver, but it was a suburb or Warm Springs, Colorado that actually used them 5 years ago. You know, it was before the pandemic. But then everything went to sleep, you know, because of the pandemic. But it's coming sooner or later. So I don't know when it's appropriate to look at. I guess when, you know, when people have time.
Yeah. I think we've taken the first step, right? So we're moving, and then basically after we pilot it in June, really, that will be, you know, a conversation. We were just asked to provide the capability, and we will do that for town meeting, and then it can be decided what we want, how we want to proceed for the following year, what we need to do next.
Julie, on the 250th on the pool, does that mean that there will be kind of one major feed that everybody sees the same thing, basically, you know, no matter what the media source is?
Yes, I believe so. But when we sign, seal, and deliver with our media production partner that's going to handle all that, we'll know more. But I believe it's going to be our live stream that they're going to get. Our live stream, meaning what the camera angles that we're switching and that we're controlling, what the viewers are going to see, that live feed.
And then
In other words, they're not going to get 6 different feeds from the 6 different cameras.
so then the other parties will have their own staff, though, or something, running commentaries, or
They said they might bring reporters. Yeah,
okay.
but they're not going to be there all day like we are. I did not get that impression.
How did your session with the bridge go? Do you anticipate any further kind of cooperation with the bridge at this point?
Oh yeah, that was another thing that happened. We were all, myself and the bridge and a couple other folks were invited to speak at the League of Women Voters a couple Fridays ago to talk about communication in Concord. So it was me, it was Ned from the radio station, it was Miley, the CEO of the bridge, Polly, who does Live in Concord, you know, social media, and then the woman who runs the magazine in Concord. And we all spoke about what we did and do, and we all agreed that we would collaborate. And it was a good meeting of the minds. And it's on YouTube if you want to see it. League of Women Voters First Friday. Okay.
Yeah, it seems like, seeing things visually is, well, it's like TV, right? It's like TV news or TV events. It seems like it's kind of a natural part of the process because there's so many things that, you can do visually versus, basically any other medium.
Right.
And I know Carlin Reed was doing a couple of programs on, just interviewing basically people. And so she was doing studio things.
Well, speaking of that, our own Corey Atkins filmed her first show. She is going to be doing a show with us. And she filmed an interview with Gary Clayton and Rob Monroe about the 250th. And it's on YouTube. And I highly recommend everybody watch it because she is excellent on camera. She's a great hostess.
So when are we going to see that?
It's on YouTube right now.
Oh, it is?
Already, I watched it. It was
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
And her show is going to be called Connecting Concord.
It'll be every other week, Vincent, like an hour show, like a chronicle kind of show. Putting faces and having a little bit more time to go into different issues with direct conversations with different folks from around town.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, the future of journalism.
Yeah, the feeling is the more that we can do on the local level to make people feel connected, the safer they will feel. Going through these times.
Okay, is there anything we have to do yet with the budget at this point? I mean, I think we saw a very nice presentation. When was it, February?
Yeah, back in January, we did that. So I can provide just a very quick update on the budget. So we're in a good state. So the fact that, I don't know how everybody else felt, but I felt running the budget drills in January was really a good time because we were able to have time, number one, to develop it. And then if there had been any questions or any issues, we would have still had time to make adjustments or anything like that. So I really would love to keep that schedule going forward as, work the budget in January, presented at the January meeting. If you have edits, we can make them and bring them back or, whatever. So we're in really good shape for the budget. I don't know, you guys, the town articles, the town warrant was released. We were article number 54 on so we are in, there's no further action required. We'll have our enterprise hearing for MMN on May 1st. So that will be the next target that we will have to do. So Julie and I will basically repeat the presentation that we gave the committee, and barring any question, we should be able to move forward. So I think we're in really good shape for the budget in that perspective.
So anybody else have any thoughts on the budget or questions?
No, I thought that both Julian, Lori did a fabulous job in the presentation.
Yeah, I thought that was great too. I thought that went very well.
Agreed.
So that's it. I think we're good, you know, until our enterprise hearing. So I think, we appreciate, the support. Julie and I appreciate the support.
Okay, well, going on with the last item, since the contract is almost signed, sealed, and delivered, or will be shortly. Traditionally, and it's not a very long tradition because I think this really only started, you know, maybe in 1996 or something like that, I think. The cable committee, as it was then called, typically disbanded. And there actually, the arrangements at that point were MMN was still a separate entity, you know, a nonprofit entity at that point. And in 2017, the transition, you know, to basically being a operation, almost a department of the town started. And so the question is basically, what is the most appropriate way to go forward? And it seems that there are three main options. One is basically to disband and no longer have a committee. And it's not really clear if there is a need for a committee. It seems that, you know, MMN is now well established as a town department. And the reporting going forward or the public coverage can continue basically as a function of the department, even on a month-by-month basis, or, you know, whatever seems most appropriate, without having an oversight committee to do it. The second method would be, I guess we'd call it a, as the late great Yogi Berra said, when you come to a fork in the road, take it. So that would, you know, involve having a basically one branch of the fork continuing as we are now, and the other branch would be maybe or maybe not doing something on a broader level, which I would call connectivity and information. So connectivity refers to basically all of the methods by which people communicate with each other. First of all, on the infrastructure basis, you know, which means a combination of cable TV and actually, you know, even roads, which, you know, were stipulated in the Constitution to be mail roads. So mail is one of the forms of communication as established in the Constitution. Obviously, entities like the bridge have made good use of that, although I guess a lot of it is getting passed on or posted without the need, you know, to spend postage on it. And Furthermore, actually, there's kind of a opportunity or an omission actually on the Concord 2030 master plan, because internet is only mentioned once in that. And it is on a negative basis, because they said that the internet is probably going to cause local businesses to lose business. But there was that one single mention. So it seems there is an opportunity there, perhaps, to make a broader statement in an updated Envision 2030 that again would be called something like communication and connectivity, kind of in a broader context. It's not necessarily a committee, mandated approach. It may be something, indeed, it probably should be something that's shared by more than one group. And in fact, it would be very appropriate, since we're at the halfway point now, to think about revisiting Concord 2030 in its entirety, because so much has passed over and under the bridge, including a pandemic and now the advent of AI, which is going to be just a profound opportunity and change to governance and many other parts of life. So wondering if anybody has any thoughts on, what the best way is to go forward. Corey?
I wasn't on the committee, but back in 2017, I felt strongly, as I still do, I am very, very wary of M&M being a part of the town. First of all, I think that it needs a board and that the station needs someone it can go to if it in fact is in conflict with the town. The station sits on a good $1 million, and lots of people have their eye on that money that goes just, particularly for the operation of the station. For government in the press to be in the same spot is a dangerous position. And we haven't felt that here in Concord because we're managed by good people. And I think we are shown every day what happens when you get too complacent with that. So I'm more into not disbanding, but exploring just how other stations do it. And Julie and Tori, I'd really like your feedback, because you must talk to colleagues from other stations and have your own ideas on this.
Yes, definitely. I mean, usually with my colleagues, if they're a town department, they don't have a board, but if if they are a nonprofit, they do. But
How do you feel at the station in terms of having a board or not having a board, or what the organizational structure is for you guys?
yeah, I don't know. That's what I need to. That's what I need to learn more about. I guess we need to flesh it out more about what it would look like. But I do value what you said about having you being there for us if we need you to take care of any conflicts for us.
And vice versa, cuts both ways.
Yeah.
Now, Corey, is there a mechanism in the town to have like an ad hoc, not an official sort of government, committee but some sort of advisory council that would be halfway.
Jason might be I'm local government obviously is not my expertise.
Yeah.
I think it's the most complicated part of government, quite frankly. I'd rather be talking about nuclear warheads,
Yeah,
but
right.
go ahead, Jason.
One idea that comes to mind, something I think that's come up before, because I think even back when Carlin was on the committee, we were having these conversations too. But it might make sense for maybe one member to work with staff to really dive into this and do some analysis and then bring it back to the larger group, because I think it's hard for people who are kind of just going in once a month and
Right.
hearing the pros and cons, but if one member could be appointed to spend, a few weeks or a couple
Yeah.
meeting periods going through this with staff and having a few meetings to say like, okay, can you show me the different models in use in Massachusetts? Let's note pros and cons. Let's put together a package, and then there could be like recommendations after getting committee input. And then, and this is happening with the personnel board right now, is, they have been working on updating their charge. They are telling the select board, hey, we recognize that the system has changed, the inputs have changed, so we'd like you to consider amending our charge, and the select board listens, and then they give feedback, and then ultimately they adopt a different charge. So I think, going through a process like that might be easier to do with the help of staff and maybe one or two committee members, and say like, okay, hey, whoever, why don't you meet with staff? We'll go over the options. They'll look at the pros and cons of this, what other cities and towns do, and then they could, bring a recommendation to the larger committee, and you guys could then talk about that. It's hard when it's just this nebulous, like, well, what do you want to do with ourselves? But I think,
We don't know the
yeah,
options.
and then to your point about like, can we spin up an ad hoc, committee? Absolutely, you can. But I mean, like, we could give you examples of other committees that do that in town, and then other, mechanisms. So that would be my thought, is how you could do this productively, as opposed to just kind of posing it out there to see what feedback people have. Just because, number one, this setup is new to the group here, so there's not like in other committees who've been around for 50 years and everybody knows how it's worked and why it was set up that way. This is an experiment, the current model. And so it would be nice to dive into look at the different models and go a little bit deeper than what one, 15-minute session in a public meeting can get.
But it would be good to hear what sort of what other models are with other parts of the town. So, somebody who would be well versed in those
Yeah,
would be helpful. And then I agree, looking at other municipalities in the state would give some guidance as well. So I'd be happy to volunteer for that.
I would too. I'd be happy to partner with you.
Sure.
Also, is this something that Susan could help us with?
Sue Buskey?
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, under a different scope, I think we're closing out the PO because it can't really be expanded again because it was a RFP process. But
okay.
yeah, I mean, I think what I would recommend to the committee is work with Amalia and Julie and tell them what you're looking for, and they will find the right resources to give the committee objective feedback and kind of do that analysis. Some of it they can do themselves, some of it they might want to recommend a consultant, but yeah, they'll know best.
Okay.
Well,
Okay.
one other thing that is done in town is the Beatty Center, and that's an enterprise fund.
Oh, right. You had talked about that.
And
Is there a timeline on this? What's the timeline on this, I guess, is a more appropriate question. Because there's a lot this spring, so.
Yeah, I would say after the
just wanna make-
after Carlisle's meeting, we,
Mhm.
sit down and start, at least get the 4 or 5 people together just to start the process.
And the
Figure out
Carlisle meetings in May?
Yeah, May 18th, I think it is.
We clear the
It's on a
election.
Sunday, actually.
Yeah. Okay, let's clear all that stuff out. Let's be kind to Julie.
Yes, yeah.
one of the things that's not unique, but somewhat different from the other entities in town is that the Beatty Center is a membership organization that charges 2020. So they need to do marketing. And the MMN operation is somewhat the same. It isn't. It's kind of a captive audience because it's all people in town, but they also need to do marketing because there's competition from Comcast, for instance. And so that would be another approach, is to make an enterprise fund.
Okay,
I mean, right now, it's not, the only true enterprise fund in the town is the BD fund, but the PEG Access Fund operates as a special revolving account, and maybe Carlin, as the FinCom member, can weigh in, but the money that comes in stays in that bucket, so it's not to be used by the general fund or in any other way.
Right.
There's probably nothing that we can exactly copy and say, "Oh, let's just do exactly what they do," but there may be some lessons learned.
yeah, we can learn from it. As a former member of the legislature, I'm just very suspicious, or not suspicious, but paranoid, because I see them move money around that shouldn't be moved
Yeah.
around.
And I do agree with Corey around the sort of relationship between MNN and government and all that. It could really trip everyone up
Yeah,
very
yeah,
quickly. And
It-
having at least, not that we would be whoever is on this group would be the ultimate arbiters, but it's a little bit of a protection for everybody and an advisory
agree,
board. Yeah. I think it would
Okay.
benefit a lot, be beneficial.
good.
And it doesn't have to meet monthly, it can be quarterly,
right,
you know.
right, right.
Thank you for doing that.
Well, certainly, Corey, there is a kind of a freedom of the press issue too.
Yeah, that's being really threatened on a daily basis.
Yes, we are in troubled times.
Well, good news, bad news. We have plenty of examples to deal with. Why the press needs our guardianship,
Indeed.
a free press.
Now, one approach to do that, which provides somewhat the same protections as the SIPR nonprofit, maybe, is to do something with the bylaws. Basically to build it into the town bylaws that whomever is town manager or serves kind of the executive function of the town can't meddle with.
I think we can explore all of these when we look at the options.
Yeah. Okay, so is there a group?
Yeah, Corey and I.
Yay, thank you.
Okay, yeah, it sounds very good.
If you can give me your contact information.
Sure, I'll put it in the chat.
And the staff can coordinate with you guys too. They can
Yeah.
use separate
Okay.
setups.
Okay.
Yeah, let's after Carlisle's town, late May, early June, let's have it just an
no,
informal get together with whoever
Right.
needs to be there. And
Okay, sounds great.
Yeah, the only thing I would ask is if I know I keep asking, if we can just shift it slightly right after our town meeting, that would be great.
yeah, no,
Yeah, we won't do it the next day, or we'll check in with you before we do
Right.
anything.
Yeah.
Okay?
You all decide.
Yes.
Well, let's do it before June 30. Let's get together.
Okay. We have a commitment to do that. Okay. Does that help you, Vince?
Yes, certainly does.
Do we need to take a vote? I don't think so, do we?
I don't think so.
Okay. Good.
So we are at the end of the agenda, actually, at this point. Do we have any questions or thoughts that anybody has?
No, I just want to commend the station for what a great job they do.
Thank you.
And to commend Jason for all the hard work he did.
No problem. Happy to help.
Glad it's every 10 years.
Indeed. I
Shouldn't
don't
we
know.
do a
Yeah,
15
I don't think I'm
15 year?
gonna be here 10 years from
Right.
now. That's one of the advantages of being 78. You know, you're on countdown.
Oh,
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
moved. Second,
All,
I.
Aye.
I.
aye. Oops.
okay, we are adjourned.
All right.